The WJCT News Team.
After decades on the air, a local broadcast legend calls it a career. I'm Melissa Ross, and just ahead this hour on First Coast Connect, we speak with Ken Amaro of First Coast News about his 42 years of covering Northeast Florida on local airwaves and what his next chapter might be. That's just ahead, then later.
It needs to be from the heart. When you're full-hearted and open-hearted about doing anything, it just naturally falls into place, and leadership is not an effort, it just happens.
First Coast Success profiles executive Debbie Buckland. Plus, the Jaguars lose yet again at home to Atlanta. That and more, all ahead. After the day's news.
Live from NPR News, I'm Corva Coleman. Starting today, the U.S. is going to ban travelers from 8 countries in southern Africa. This is due to the new coronavirus variant, Omicron. This was first identified in South Africa. No cases of the Omicron variant have been detected in the United States. President Biden will discuss the pandemic later this morning and his administration's response to it. China's most well-known coronavirus scientists say the country will take a wait-and-see approach to the new Omicron variant. NPR's Emily Fang reports from Beijing that 3 cases of the highly contagious variant have already been discovered in the region of Hong Kong.
Hong Kong had just reopened its border with mainland China for business travelers. Now Beijing is on alert as the Omicron variant spreads beyond South Africa. Zhou Nanshan, China's top scientific advisor on COVID policy, says Beijing has no plans to change its current zero COVID policies. The country has strict rules even on domestic travel. It continues to lock down entire cities and test millions at a time whenever a handful of new COVID cases are discovered. One of the country's biggest vaccine makers, Sinovac, says it has begun working on a vaccine for the Omicron variant. Emily Fang, NPR News, Beijing.
Members of Congress are returning from Thanksgiving with a long list of must-pass bills to address. NPR's Deirdre Walsh reports on the big-ticket items.
It's become a holiday tradition on Capitol Hill to wait until the end of the year to tackle important legislation. The federal government runs out of money on Friday unless the House and Senate approve a stopgap funding bill to avoid a partial shutdown. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen informed Congress they have until mid-December to increase the nation's borrowing authority or risk a default. And the Senate is expected to make some changes to the roughly $2 trillion domestic spending bill that the House passed right before the break. Democratic leaders are aiming to get a final agreement on that bill that includes health care, child care, and climate programs. They want to pass it and send it back to the House for a final vote before Christmas. Deirdre Walsh, NPR News, the Capitol.
Opening statements in the federal trial of Ghislaine Maxwell are scheduled today in New York. Maxwell faces 6 charges of sex trafficking. She is accused of finding underage girls for financier Jeffrey Epstein for abuse. Epstein died by suicide in 2019 before he went to trial. Maxwell's lawyers claim she is being tried for his crimes. NPR's Jasmine Garsd says not all of the trial witnesses are known.
There is a lot of mystery around who the witnesses will be for this case. And what also remains to be seen is whether or not Maxwell had co-conspirators. And if so, will they be called in? How much we find out about that remains to be seen because there's a possibility that the government is investigating these people separately.
NPR's Jasmine Garsd reporting. This is NPR.
And the time is now 9:04. This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. On a Monday, November 29th, the University of Florida has hired Billy Napier as head football coach. Napier comes to the Gators after spending 4 seasons as head coach at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. During his tenure there, Napier amassed a 39-12 record and led the Ragin' Cajuns to 2 straight conference championships. Napier also spent time on the coaching staffs of Clemson and Alabama. The hire comes after the school fired Dan Mullen last week. The Gators won their game against FSU and are now eligible for a postseason bowl game. The causeway along the Overseas Highway in Isla Morada is known as the Phils. It's popular with visitors, maybe too popular. Nancy Klingener reports on how the village is looking to get a handle on that.
Pulling off the Overseas Highway to fish or swim or picnic is a time-honored tradition in the Keys. But in recent years, the Phils area of Isla Morada has been overwhelmed. The result was too many cars and trucks, people crossing the busy highway, and lots of trash and even human waste left behind. Now the village is coming up with a master plan for the Phils, and they want the public's input. The plan could include boat ramps, restrooms, kayak launches, and overlooks. I'm Nancy Klingener in Key West.
And that open house is set for Wednesday afternoon at Founders Park in Isla Morada. And it's now 51 degrees, breezy in Jacksonville, mostly sunny this afternoon.
PR comes from Noom, a personalized program based in psychology to help people understand their motivations, change their habits, and lead healthier lives. Learn more at Noom, Noom.com, and the listeners who support this NPR station.
After decades on the air, a local broadcast legend hangs up his mic. Good morning. We're live from Studio 5. I'm Melissa Ross, and this is First Coast Connect. Thanks for listening. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving, everyone. And just ahead this hour, a great guest as we kick off the work week. Keep listening for a conversation with none other than Ken Amaro about his incredible legacy in local journalism. Get on the line now to connect with Ken. Give us a call. It's 549-2937. Then later, the Jags lose yet again to the Falcons at home Sunday. That's coming up. But first this hour, after 42 years on local airwaves, Jacksonville broadcast legend Ken Amaro is retiring at the end of the month. Now, Ken, the longtime consumer reporter at First Coast News, is well known and well loved as a defender of the little guy. His trademark, of course, is I'm Telling Ken. What's his other trademark? You know it. It's those natty bow ties that he always wears. Now, did you see that the Jacksonville City Council even passed a resolution a week or so ago calling Ken Amaro a Jacksonville institution? Tomorrow, his station will celebrate Ken Amaro Day on the air, where they will air stories and tributes to his amazing career. But before he hangs up his mic, Ken has some thoughts about his life in TV news, and we're so pleased to welcome Ken Amaro to the show now. Ken, good morning.
Good morning, Melissa. How are you?
I'm great. It's so good to hear your voice, and thank you so much for being with us. We're already getting calls. Already getting calls for you.
To be here.
Yeah,
I've been a big fan of yours, of course, when you were in mainstream journalism, and then now you're with the platform that you have, how you've given this community the opportunity for context and perspective on a number of issues that we deal with, and even holding our public officials accountable. So congrats to what you're doing.
Well, thank you for that. That means a lot coming from you. Now, folks, we've got Ken Amaro on the line. He's retiring from his job at First Coast News at the end of the month after 42 years on the air. Yes, the man started during the Carter administration, I believe. So give us a call. It's 549-2937. Emails to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. Tweets to @MelissaInJax. Facebook too. So Ken, as I said, you actually, people don't know this about you, but you grew up in the U.S. Virgin Islands in St. Croix. Then after high school, you visited a friend in college. He suggested you check out Jones College in Jacksonville. It was warm down here. It had a broadcasting program. That's how you came to Jacksonville. And you got your first job in the business before you even graduated college at Channel 12, now Channel 12 and 25, in October 1979. So let's go back.
I know.
That's amazing that you started at what is now First Coast News in October 79.
You know, Melissa, it honestly doesn't seem that long until someone mentions the time frame, and then all of a sudden you realize, my gosh, how time has slipped away that quickly. And I think one of the what made it easy for me is that I have truly enjoyed doing what I do. When I get up in the morning, I start thinking about what kind of impact can I make, and so when I walked in the office, if you will, I'm really glad to be there. Now, the disappointment in my career, if there's one, is that there are a number of folks I wasn't able to reach, I wasn't able to assist, and so those are the folks that you feel like, I should have been able to do better, and unfortunately, for a long time, there was this great perception that it was Ken and about 5, 10, 15 people working with him, and so but that's part of it. I have always made the commitment that regardless of where I am, if someone should stop me with a question or want to have a conversation, I'm going to listen, because even if I'm not able to resolve whatever conflict there might be, the fact that you've given that person some undivided attention is usually what they've been seeking. I'll share this and I'll let you get in. One day, this is a story I've always told, that I was at the intersection of Noonan and Bay, sitting in my car waiting for the traffic light to change, and there's a lady standing in the middle of the sidewalk where the old city hall used to be, and she's screaming, "I've been calling you!" and I'm in the car like, what is wrong with this lady? And then I look to the left, and I look to the right, and it dawned on me, Guy, you're the only one that's in the intersection. And she saw me swivel my head, and she says, "Yes, I've been calling you." And so, you know what I did? Pulled over and listened. To this date, I can't tell you what the conversation was, but it's just one of those things. And I think that in our capacity, in our public platforms, a lot of times we have become the voice for those who feel that no one's listening.
Absolutely. I really do agree with you about that. It's such a privilege to get to do this for a living, and we do have to make every effort to give the voiceless a voice. That's why we do this. And certainly that's why you're so beloved, because as a consumer reporter, you are able to go to bat for people that might not otherwise have an advantage or be at a disadvantage in a situation. Do you have any particular stories that stand out in your memory that you're particularly proud of in that way?
When people ask me that question, I say the last one.
The last one.
yeah. But recently, I was cleaning my desk, and I came across the scripts of the story I did with a group in Waycross, Georgia, called Silent Disaster. And what the story did was basically gave voice to at least 15 families, if I can recall, who had experienced some kind of childhood cancer unexplainably within their community. And the jumping off point was within a 30-day period, at least 3 or 4 kids were diagnosed with rhabdomyosarcoma or Ewing sarcoma, rare cases of cancer that usually occur like 350 cases a year in the United States. Yet, in this small Waycross community, here we have 4 within a 30-day period. And so the question was, what is going on? And they were looking for answers. They went to the Department of Public Health, didn't get any response. And so someone reached out to me, and I drove up to Georgia, met with about 15 families sitting in a large meeting room at the public library, and many of them had pictures of their child who had passed from one of these cancers. And in their minds, of course, they thought there was a cancer cluster. They wanted deep investigation. There was a Superfund site already declared in their community. And so their suspicion was that the cause must be environmental. Mm-hmm. Their fear was that no one's listening, no one's paying attention. And so I remember doing the story and the impact of the story. And eventually the Georgia Department of Public Health came back in, took a second look as to the depth of their look. They did not allow us to be part of it. And everything was, what they were doing was kind of shrouded with some kind of secrecy until they finished. And then when they were finished after several weeks, it was like there's no determined cause or connection or anything of that nature, which of course didn't give the family members, any satisfaction to speak. But the fact that I was there to be able to raise their voices and garner attention, was something that they had been seeking.
Sure.
And I wish that we could have proved a connection to some of the pollution in their community, but we weren't able to. But yeah, I mean,
that one stands out in your memory. Sure.
It stuck with me.
Yeah.
Because of the kids who were dying with these real cancer. I mean,
sort of like
I
a real life.
Yeah.
Sort of like a real life Aaron Brockovich story.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The Love Canal situation.
Love Canal. Well, you know what? Let's go to some calls now, because if you're just tuning in, I'm Melissa Ross, and on First Coast Connect today, we are speaking with the great Ken Amaro. Yes, the broadcast news legend at First Coast News, after 42 years on the air here, is retiring soon. What are your thoughts and comments for Ken? 549-2937. David in Ponte Vedra Beach. Hi, David. Go ahead.
Hi, guys. Ken, I'm David Silver. I've talked to you over the years, and I just thought you were just a wonderful guy. And how old are you now? You still look young to me.
I'm 68, David.
You're 58?
68.
68, and he looks about 45. Yeah, I know it. It's true, David. Ken is kind of ageless. What's your secret, Ken? What's the deal there?
I have no idea. Just keep living.
Just keep living.
I've been here since a year old from New York City. My parents brought me here to the beach, and you've been here a long time in Jacksonville, too. And I think everybody who lives here is blessed, because in Northeast Florida, it's very special with all the different types of people we have. And, of course, I think we're one of the best, other than San Diego, we're one of the best weather conditions in the country overall. And so we're just very lucky and fortunate to be living in this area, I hope.
Yeah, David, thanks. Thanks for that, and thanks for calling. We're speaking with Ken Amaro. He's about to retire, but he'll still be around. Now's your chance to chat with Ken. 549-2937. Ira on the South Side. Hi, Ira.
Melissa, thank you very much for taking my call. When I moved here from Dallas, Texas, I met Mr. Amaro. I'm Army Airborne retired. He was tireless in his help of righting the ship for Wounded Warrior with the gaming problems they were having. And I just want to thank him on behalf of veterans who Mr. Amaro has been the champion for. And hopefully someday we'll find out where the several $100 million went.
Yeah, they did have a scandal for sure, Ken. I didn't know you were involved with that, Ken.
Yeah, and as Ira is speaking, I remember meeting Ira, a wonderful gentleman who was drawing attention to what was taking place. I've had the privilege to speak with Al Giordano, who was the chief operating officer, chief financial officer. I'm sorry, I don't remember his exact title. And Al brought some perspective to that whole issue as to the severity of the scandal. The sad thing is that this is a wonderful organization that was helping a number of post 9/11 veterans, and once. If you recall, Melissa, once that story aired on CBS News that
evening, I remember.
The donors started falling off, and unfortunately, the end result of that is a reduction in service to those post 9/11 veterans. But I think that the organization is really, has bounced back under major Leamington, I think is his name, if my memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, a new
And
chapter
so
for them. Yeah.
they and there was a shift in their program services as well. You saw where they began putting more emphasis in mental health services for the veterans. So yeah, it was a bad thing on one side, but it seemed to have produced a different direction. But they're still there, and I think they're a good organization.
Alan on the South Side. Hey, Alan. Good morning.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Hey, Ken. I'm sorry to hear you're retiring because we can never have enough problem solvers like you in the world. That having been said, I'm wondering about potential political aspirations.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that question. We're getting tweets asking the same thing. Okay, Ken. What are your future plans?
Melissa, so far the next chapter is blank. The pages are blank.
Uh-huh. But you could run for office, and I think you could win. I think that you have a lot of credibility. You have name recognition. You understand all the local issues. Is that
And
something you're thinking about?
The thought has entered my mind because some people have approached me about that. The reality is that I believe in public service. And therefore, if it's the dawn of Aquarius and the moons and the stars.
I didn't know you were a fan of Hair, the musical, but that kind of makes sense, actually. I can see that about you.
But if everything goes well, you never know.
Never know. Okay, so not ruling it out. Well, let me just put this bug in your ear now.
Matthew McConaughey said this morning that he is not running for office in Texas. But anyway, you never know.
Yeah, I saw that. Probably a good move on his part. But if you don't run for office, let me just put this bug in your ear now. We'd love to have you do commentaries here on our air. So maybe consider that. I think people would love to hear your thoughts on things. Dan is on the air. Dan Scanlon of the Florida Times-Union. Hi, Dan.
My buddy, Dan.
Hey, good morning.
Senator Ken Amaro, nice to talk to you. We have worked side by side for probably 30 of my years in this market. He was one of the last of the old war horses out there still covering and getting the truth. And Ken, I'm going to miss you. We've covered many, many things side by side. And then remember, we, for 2-3 years, did Fast Car Friday live from your parking lot.
Oh, I remember those. Those were a lot of fun, Dan. Yeah.
And Melissa, you used to come out and watch sometimes because you were working across the street, too.
That's right. I remember those days. And thanks for the call, Dan.
Dan, thank you for your kind words. There's mutual respect for what you do, and I've always admired your passion as well.
So, Ken,
for the field of journalism.
Speaking of that, I want to ask you, as you prepare to retire, as I mentioned, when you started in the business, it was a very different world in TV news and in journalism in general. You've lived through so many changes in the business. What are your thoughts about the state of journalism today and how it's being pressured in so many different ways? Of course, let me make a plug for our newsroom at WJCT and our new digital newspaper we're launching, jaxtoday.org, to try to fill a gap in local coverage because we need good local journalists. How are you seeing that as you retire?
Melissa, you are so on point. And I recently had a conversation with someone about the shifting landscape, if you will. And there's one thing that I know within my heart, and that is that you and I and other local journalists, when we set out to do our task every day, we're not we're operating on the pillars of objectivity, the pillars of fairness, the pillars of truth and context and balance and reporting, because we feel a great deal of responsibility to tell what is true. Unfortunately, we are at a crossroad, if you will, where you use the word pressure, where there are so many challenges from these different dynamics, from the social platforms, which have become a source of information for news, from what I call the talking head channels. the CNN, the Foxes, that kind of thing, which primarily, in my opinion, those are commentary platforms where people give their opinion in the shape of news, and therefore they have brought their own implicit bias to whatever they're saying. There is a need for local journalism. There is a need for local news because I want to be informed. One of the things that I've done for my career is every morning before I get to work, I try to read, and with the help of digital platforms, it's become a lot easier, but try to read as many newspapers as possible in our geographic area so I can see what is taking place, what the conversation is, what's the narrative of the day. And I may not be 100% informed, but I am somewhat informed as to what's taking place. And I usually read institution papers that have been around that I trust, that stand on those pillars that I mentioned earlier, truth, fairness, objectivity.
Sure.
I tell you what, one of the hardest things that in my career, at least, is for me to go out and do a story and screw up, make a mistake.
Mm-hmm. And we've all done it.
Yeah, and you know what? Your professional ethics are to correct it right away. Don't try to couch it. Don't try to hide it. Man up to it, if you will. And instead of blaming someone, it's my fault, mea culpa. And so the accountability is a two-sided street. If I'm going to hold someone accountable, then I have to hold myself accountable as well. So,
sure. We're speaking with Ken Amaro. He's retiring soon. Curtis on the north side. Hi, Curtis.
Hi, good morning, guys. Thank you for taking my call, Melissa.
Sure.
Dan, brother, we look forward to your commentary, my wife and I. Matter of fact, her maiden name is Terry Ray. It's Terry Houston now. She said y'all went to school together, so we watched you over the years and watched you blossom, brother. It's beautiful.
Oh, that's nice.
I would like to make one quick comment, if I may, Melissa. We go down during the holidays and patronize the local businesses. One is Wolf and Cubs on Laurel Street. We went there Friday after Thanksgiving, heartbroken because the city is steady pushing downtown, come downtown. But it's actually frightening when you go there and you have to walk through all the transits, the homeless that are standing around watching you when you park.
Oh, now, Curtis, come on. It's not that bad.
Hey, well, Melissa, I was just there Friday. I stood outside with my dog because I didn't want to leave the vehicle where I parked at. It was two young ladies came out. They stopped because they saw the guys. And I asked them, excuse me, where y'all parked at? And they told me. I said, come on, I'll walk y'all to y'all car.
Well, that's nice.
So
but look,
I don't know.
Look, man, I appreciate it. But if you don't mind, I just want to keep the focus on Ken's retirement.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Forgive me.
Yeah.
Ken, congratulations, my brother. Look forward to hearing from you in the future.
Thank you, Curtis. Yeah, I think we all are eager to see what Ken does next. Hey, Ken, here's a comment on our Facebook page from Rick. What's the one story that didn't make it to air that you wish had? I know that's kind of a tough one to think of on the spot.
I did. There was one I was working on recently that had to do with. There was a lot of emotional issues to it. A kid committed suicide, and the family implied in a lawsuit that, or alleged in a lawsuit that the school he was attending was a contributing factor. And it was I felt it was a powerful story that deals with some of the issues that occur in the school systems where we send our children to every day and entrust our kids to be in a safe environment. And but there were some issues that caused it not to make air. And but I thought the story was fair. But we have to when we examine these things, we have to look at them also through the legal lenses, if you will, to see if it stands.
Yeah. So not everything can make it through that process. But hey, Ken, I have one more question for you. Now, as I mentioned, people need to tune into your station tomorrow, December 1st. It'll be Ken Amaro Day on the air there at First Coast News as they honor your career. And then, of course,
embarrass me, I think. I don't know.
No, I think it'll be really nice. And of course, you're getting ready to leave the newsroom for the last time. But I got to ask you this. When you are no longer coming into work every day, what's going to happen to all of the bow ties? Are you still going to wear your bow ties when you're out and about, or are we going to see casual Ken?
It might be a mixture of both. I love the bow tie. About maybe 5 years ago, I don't remember, someone, I presume the person was an attorney, sent me a box of his bow ties saying that I no longer have any need for these. Perhaps you can use them. And I was flattered because they were very nice ties rather. And I don't know if I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to keep mine and hang on to them.
You got to do that. And I, by the way, December 1st, Ken Amaro Day is Wednesday, I meant to say, at First Coast News. So tune in for that. And Ken, I loved working with you. It's been some time now, but I have really positive memories of you in the newsroom. And I wish you all the best on your next chapter. And thank you so much for being with us today.
And thank you for having me. I wish you well.
And much more still ahead later in the hour. The Jags lose again, yes, to the Falcons this time. The Gators select a new head coach. That's later in sports. But up next.
It needs to be from the heart. When you're full-hearted and open-hearted about doing anything, it just naturally falls into place. And leadership is not an effort. It just happens.
One of the region's top female execs on forging a path for more women in leadership. That's next in our First Coast Success.
Today's segment of First Coast Success is brought to you by Iberia Bank.
Well, she's one of the top female executives in town, the recently retired market president of Truist Bank, but also one of the few women to ever serve as Jack's chamber chair and in other key leadership roles. In today's First Coast Success, Karen Bruni Mathis of the Jack's Daily Record talks with Debbie Buckland about making a wider path for more women in leadership.
Debbie Buckland is well known for her leadership in Jacksonville. She most recently retired as Jacksonville Market President of Truist Financial Corporation. Next year, she chairs the Jacksonville Transportation Authority. Buckland is one of just several women to have chaired Jack's Chamber. She also chaired Downtown Vision and the Jacksonville Women's Business Center. In 2019, the Chamber's Jack's USA Partnership and Jacksonville Women's Leadership Coalition created Elevate Women. It is designed to connect more women with C-suite positions and strengthen the overall workforce. Buckland called it an economic development issue. Debbie Buckland, welcome to First Coast Success.
Thank you, Karen. It's great to be here.
How do you choose your leadership roles? You are in demand.
That, to me, is a funny thing to hear. So, and I had to reflect on the question when I knew you were going to ask me that. So I guess my first response, just from the heart, is if it's not a hell yes, then it's a no. And it's just like anything, you know if it's a fit and if it's right. So upon reflection, I came up with three things that were critical to me. Number one, it needs to be from the heart. When you're full-hearted and open-hearted about doing anything, it just naturally falls into place, and leadership is not an effort, it just happens. Number two, it needs to solve a problem, and it needs to be part of the solution for a systemic issue, not just a Band-Aid on something. And number three, is it politically, practically expedient, and sustainable in the long term. So those are the three things. And if it meets that criteria, then usually, I think, especially now that I'm a little older, it's as important what you say no to as what you say yes to.
Well, one of your primary missions is to elevate the status of women, especially women in business in Jacksonville. And how would you characterize that status now?
So I would say, first and foremost, that Jacksonville is a great place for women. And I'm an example of that. You're an example of that. Second thing I would say is that I'm checking my privilege as I speak, because it is not a good place for all women, and in particular our sisters of color. Women of color have a much more difficult time. So checking my privilege there. The data tells us that women are underrepresented in Jacksonville. Well, I think nationally, first of all, 22% of board representation are female, and that statistic might even be global. And I think something like 35 countries have implemented legislation that requires gender equity on boards. So in Jacksonville, we have it a little bit better. 24% representation, that's what the data says, and 37% representation in the C-suite. So that excludes not-for-profits, and it excludes higher education. So, business, private companies. We're going for 50%. And I read an interesting statistic last night. So I think 51% of the voting population in Jacksonville is female. And I read a statistic this week that in the last 56 years, in every single presidential election, more women voted than men. So it's, a conundrum as to why we're still underrepresented.
And you mentioned a little bit about what you would like to see. Do you see this as being a possibility, and what kind of time frame are you looking at?
So, yes, I see it as a possibility because we continue to make incremental progress and we're working to be intentional about it. The vision for the work we launched through Jack's USA Partnership under the name of Elevate Women has as its vision making Northeast Florida the best place for women to succeed personally and professionally. And we want that to be part of the fabric of our economic development message to companies who are locating here, so that we're not delivering the message we heard from Adecco when they departed our community. We need to tell a different story. So the data will show us that ROIs are better for private businesses when there's equal representation and diversity and inclusion. We believe strongly that as more women are in decision-making roles, then policies and work environments will become more family-friendly. Systemic barriers will fall one at a time. And a great example of that is child care, paid family leave. So those happen easier when you have the equal representation and women in positions of decision-making.
Now, you reached a top level of banking in Jacksonville. What suggestions do you have for women to reach the tops of their industries?
So I would say ask with every decision that you're faced with, what are you trying to prove and to whom? What are you trying to prove and to whom? And again, I'm checking my privilege here because there are more women who really don't have a choice to even, or, the ability to ask that question. They just have to, forge ahead every day. So I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, fight for what you want, but do it in a way that allows others to want to come along with you. And I think for women especially, it's easy to get to a place of anger because the past is what it is. And if we continue to approach our work, our problems, and our lives, from a place of wishing the past was different, we're not going to be successful. So I would say stay in the game, shake off the past, and bring others along with you.
Well, let's talk about banking a little bit. How did you choose that career?
So I did not choose banking. Banking chose me. And I graduated college in 1979 and could not find a job. And so I took a job as a bank teller. And here we are today.
That's reaching the top.
That's true.
Well, what brought you to Jacksonville?
So we came to Jacksonville in 1998 with my husband's, he was with then First Union on the executive leadership team. I was a stay-at-home mom. Our kids were in 2nd grade and 6th grade, and we moved here from Washington, D.C. So a little bit of a culture shock, but both of us were coming from, we were both raised in the South. So it was like, in some respects, coming back home, and after coming from a community like the greater Washington area, it was a bit of a culture shock.
And you're a native of?
Johnson City, Tennessee, in the mountains of Appalachia.
Pretty area.
Yeah, beautiful.
Well, you've been in Jacksonville more than 20 years now, and you've won many awards for your work and your leadership. What do you see as Jacksonville's strengths?
Jacksonville has a lot of strengths. So if I were just going to bullet point them, beyond the geography, climate, and lifestyle that are afforded by those things, we have the St. Johns River, we have saltwater and freshwater, we have diversity in our population, 31% African American. We have a consolidated government, which is a little bit of a two-edged sword, but we're fortunate to be such a sprawling city in square miles to have that consolidated government, and we're smallish. Smallish is a Southern colloquial word, I know, but we're smallish for a big town, and so we can make a difference. I feel like anybody here can find their place in the community and make a difference and not get lost. And, we have so many neighborhoods.
Well, Debbie Buckland, community and business leader, thank you for joining First Coast Success.
Thank you, Karen.
Well, right now we want to tell you about an amazing new effort to help local veterans as they recover from medical issues related to their service. UF Health Jacksonville, the Gary Sinise Foundation, and philanthropic partners, including the Players, recently cut the ribbon on a new facility in Jacksonville to bring comprehensive brain health care to veterans. It's called the Haley Brain Wellness Program at UF Health Jax. With more, we welcome on the line Executive Director Kelly Letelier. Kelly, good morning.
Good morning.
And also with us, Jared Rice, Executive Director out at the Players. Hey, Jared.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning to you both. Okay, so Kelly, let's begin with you. Tell us a little bit about this new brain wellness program at UF Health Jackson, what it's going to do for both veterans and first responders.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the first responders. The primary overreaching goal for our program is to reduce suicide amongst veterans and first responders. The suicide rate amongst this population of our patients is overwhelming. It's 20 veterans or first responders commit suicide every day. So that it's just staggering. So really, the program is aimed at reducing those numbers. Specifically, the program it's a 3-week intense therapy program. So the patients come, the veterans, the first responders, their families come for a full 3-week commitment. They come 8 hours a day for the 3 weeks. Throughout the day, they have different appointments with different types of providers. We have some of the very traditional therapies like psychiatry, substance abuse counseling, behavioral health. We have neuropsychologists, physical therapists, speech therapists, occupational therapy, some of the more traditional kind of medical model of care. In addition to that, what supplements that are some other supported therapies that help these patients. And we use the Marcus Institute for Brain Health in Colorado, their model, which is a proven model to help these patients. So we have things like acupuncture, yoga, tai chi, art therapy, canine therapy, equine therapy. So really care that veterans don't typically have access to, or may not know where to get it, or that they may not even know that those therapies
are available. Yeah.
They're not going to knock on an acupuncturist door and go see if it helps. So here they'll be exposed to just different types of care that they may not know that might help them. Acupuncture might be something that really helps them, and after the program they can seek out a care provider for
That's
those
great.
services.
Yeah, veterans and first responders, we're not just talking about traumatic brain injuries, but like you said, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, substance abuse problems, so many ways you're going to help this population. And I love that you've named it after the late Dr. Leon Haley, who used to run UF Health Jax till he died tragically recently. Now, this is the only clinic of its kind in the state of Florida. It's getting support from Gary Sinise's foundation. He's, of course, the actor that we all know and love. Think of him in Forrest Gump and other films. And Jared Rice, the Players Championship, is donating $1 million to this effort, among other local partners. And tell us about the Players' support.
Well, you just mentioned, I think, one that really drew us to support the team in this effort is the leadership of Dr. Haley. To learn more about his vision and what he wanted to bring to the military community, it was easy to get behind. He is a tremendous leader and visionary, and I think, in my personal opinion here from the players, the team and the foundation's willingness to name this center in his honor was just, again, very, very inspiring. So. As an organization, we immediately wanted to get behind that vision. And again, Kelly and the team are really the ones doing the real work. But a big part of our mission is to serve and support the community where we host the players. Mm-hmm. And within that mission is a big commitment and a place in our heart for the military, which is just so prevalent, both active, retired, reserved, and their families here in this community. So we pride ourselves on being good listeners and heard that this is an area of need, and really excited to be able to provide $1 million gift to do that. So thanks to you and to those that come out and enjoy the tournament. We're in a position to be able to do things like this and give back.
That's great.
It's a great day.
Yeah. And now this program, interesting to note, will also serve non-veterans. That will help subsidize the cost of care for veterans. So, Kelly, this care is available to local veterans, free or nearly free, I take it. How can veterans access care at the Haley Brain Wellness Program?
Yes, so it is. It's no cost to veterans. So we feel like we wanted to eliminate all barriers of care. So generous donations from organizations like the Players and ViStar Credit Union and the Jaguars Foundation helps kind of pay for some of those folks who may need to travel to get here or take time off from work. So our referral line is 904-244-3289. A lot of our patients really are coming from word of mouth and exposures like these, and getting more visibility in the community because it is such a new program. We're located on the UF Health Jacksonville campus and have a beautiful space. It's 10,000 square feet of treatment area. It's brand new, thanks to the grant that we've received through the Gary Sinise Avalon network and the Players Championship.
That's so wonderful. Yeah. So again, if you're a veteran or a first responder, or you know one that could benefit from this care, contact the Haley Brain Wellness Program at UF Health Jacksonville. It's free for military veterans suffering from the invisible wounds of war, traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress, depression, substance abuse. Get in touch. And thank you, Kelly. Kelly Letelier, Executive Director of the Haley Brain Wellness Program, and Jared Rice, Executive Director at the Players Championship. Thanks to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great week.
You too. And in a moment, the Jaguars lose at home. yet again to the Falcons. Josh Torres has the recap next.
The Jacksonville Symphony presents Mozart's vibrant Piano Concerto No. 21, led by music director Courtney Lewis, featuring guest pianist Alessio Bax, live in Jacoby Hall, December 3rd and 4th. Treat yourself to the sensational experience of live classical music. Tickets and information at jacksymphony.org.
Historians are creating a more complete view of Florida's past by focusing on indigenous people. I'm Ben Brotmarkle, and coming up on Florida Frontiers, the weekly radio magazine of the Florida Historical Society, we'll talk with a panel of experts on our state's native populations. We'll visit the historic Hastings Public Library and discuss the Spanish mission system. That's Florida Frontiers, Monday evening at 6:30 on WJCT News 89.9.
On the next Fresh Air, investigative reporter Paul Robison tells the tragic story of Boeing's 737 MAX airplane, which was grounded after 2 deadly crashes exposed flaws the company hadn't told pilots about. Robison says it's the story of a corporate culture that valued profits over safety. His new book is called Flying Blind. Join us.
Today at noon on WJCT News 89.9.
China's nuclear stockpile is growing. The Pentagon expects Beijing to quadruple its nuclear arsenal in the next 10 years. That, together with China's recent test of a hypersonic space weapon, are just 2 of the big issues faced by Bonnie Jenkins. Jenkins heads the country's arms threat reduction program at the State Department, and she joins us next time on 1A.
Today starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, another Jaguars game, another depressing loss, plus a new head coach for the Gators. Josh Torres has some sports news and notes. Let's begin with, no surprise, Josh, another loss at home for our boys at the bank.
Yes, Melissa, and it's only fitting. I want to ask you a question really quickly.
Okay.
Do you know what today is?
Monday.
Today, it has been officially 10 years since Jaguars' original owner, Wayne Weaver, agreed to sell the team to Mr. Shad Khan.
Oh, wow.
10 years to today.
Wow.
And, well, we only need look to yesterday. And I'm sorry, fans, I got to get harsh here. Yesterday was yet another unexcusable loss. The team, yet again, we all said that it started off with the omen of the mascot, Jackson DeVille, getting stuck when he usually uses a zip line to get over the stadium. He got stuck and had to be lowered into the 400 section.
So that was the highlight of the game,
That
basically.
might as well have been an omen for what was about to happen. You know, again, it was just another day when everything the team struggled. Atlanta came into this game, they hadn't scored an offensive touchdown in 2 games. They got shut out the week before. They lost something like 45-3 the week before that. And by halftime, they had already scored 2 touchdowns. They were up 14-3. Yet again, penalties came into mind where there was just way too many. They were keeping Atlanta's offense on the field. Jacksonville's offense just couldn't get anything going. And it was another game where they started to get hot, and then they just fell apart. The boo bird started to come out even more during the third quarter when the team was down 21-3 and let another offensive series come and go. They finally got a little life into them. They got a beautiful toe tap touchdown by Taven Austin. Matthew Wright made a field goal to make it 21-14. There was some hope. The energy got into the building, and then just as quickly as it came in, it was gone. And the Jags got the ball back with about 2 minutes left in the game, and yet again failed to make any sort of dent in that score. Still lost 21-14. Trevor Lawrence, you could tell he was starting to get really upset, was visibly angered by what he saw on the field, and even after the game, just all of them were again speechless as to whether what did we not do, what aren't we doing right. And Urban Meyer had an interesting comment that a lot of people just are trying to figure out what was going on, where star running back James Robinson wasn't on the field during that last drive for whatever reason. There was a point in the game he fumbled for the first time in something like 400 rushes and then missed the next 16 offensive snaps afterwards. And when asked about why they were keeping James Robinson off the field, Urban Meyer essentially said, well, you need to ask our offensive coordinator or running backs coach. I don't, micromanage that. And people are like, well, then what do you do?
Yeah. Speaking of that, I want to read a tweet to you from Nate Monroe at the TU. He tweets, Urban Meyer is a confidence man, and Shad Khan is the perfect mark. Desperate, disinterested in details, bloated with cash. And now that the fraud has been exposed, Khan is too cheap to fire Meyer. They deserve each other, but the fans deserve better. So is Shad Khan too cheap to get rid of Urban Meyer?
It could very well not be so much as cheap as much as having to admit that you were wrong. I mean, remember how big this hire was for the team, and now they're going to they're eventually at some point going to have to admit, you know what, we were wrong, and it's all about how long they're waiting. And this week they're going to LA to play the Rams, where they're already coming in as a 14-point underdog.
So depressing. They will be playing former Jaguar Jalen Ramsey in that game. You'll be watching. Okay, let's talk quickly about college football.
It was rivalry week, last week of the regular season. We go down to Gainesville. Florida played FSU to try and get to, each team needed one win to get to a bowl game, and Florida came out on top 24-21 after what I called the onside whiff when FSU's kicker, he needed an onside kick to try and give his team a chance to win. He whiffed it, just moved the ball enough to be considered a kick, and Florida recovered, ended the game. Florida yesterday did announce who is going to replace Dan Mullen. It is going to be Louisiana Lafayette coach Billy Napier. He's been the head coach of the Raging Cajuns for 4 years, has amassed a record of 39-12, and for the last 3 straight seasons has double-digit wins, including this one where he is 11-1. Georgia easily handled their rival Georgia Tech 45-0. They're going into what is easily going to be the biggest game of this weekend, the SEC championship game in Atlanta against Alabama, and that is going to be a huge, huge game. Miami, they beat Duke 47-10. Now they're looking to see what bowl game they're going to play in. Lastly, we have UCF, USF, the war on I-4. UCF,
the war on I-4, I love it.
Yep, UCF took their win 17-13, and they are going to also be waiting this weekend to find out what bowl game they'll play in.
Okay, and congrats to the UNF women's volleyball team, right?
Yep, they are going to their first ever postseason tournament as a Division I program. They were selected to play in the National Invitational Volleyball Championship, and I believe it's this Friday. They will be taking on UNC Greensboro, so good luck to the Ospreys.
Always great to have you talking sports on Mondays. Thanks, Josh Torres.
Thank you.
Josh is also our show director. And thanks to everyone on the team, including senior producer Heather Schatz, associate producer Catherine Hobbs, editorial director Jessica Palumbo, and news editor Randy Roguski. And you, send your emails to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. We love your feedback. I'm Melissa Ross. We'll be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Have a great Monday.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPA.